What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Today I'm very keen to share with you our latest modded build for Skyrim, and this one is a personal favorite of mine. This is the Akaviri Assassin. Now this guy is not from the distant land of Akavir, but if his unique aesthetic and magnificent Akaviri katana is of any indication, he's not like any other man in the land of Skyrim. This master assassin is trained in the secret arts of Akaviri combat, and after spending many years in the courts of High Rock, navigating through squabbling lords and ambitious gentry, he knows exactly how to get his way, whether it be lashing out with his silver tongue, or simply materializing from shadow to assassinate targets with a hefty price on their heads. The Akaviri Assassin has the skill set to become a very rich man. If that means closing the lid on his moral compass, well, that's just a perk of the job. Provoked by the atrocities of the Great War and the butchery of the blades at the hands of the Thalmor, this assassin has more than just gold on his mind. The only thing more valuable than a pocket full of gold is a decapitated Thalmor agent. Thanks to a variety of mods, the Akaviri Assassin fights with unrivaled speed, and when he doesn't want to be seen, his stealth game makes him near impossible to detect. He can even unleash the thumb without blowing his cover. Most of this is thanks to the Ordinator perk overhaul, which, as it says on the tin, totally overhauls the perk tree system for so many new possibilities. Similarly, the Apocalypse Magic of Skyrim mod gives him some useful new spells to implement. Then we have the Oblivion Artifact Pack SE mod for his aesthetic and weapon choices. The alternate start mod gives us some much needed role-playing variety, and the Imperious Races of Skyrim mod will give us some more unique benefits to being a Breton. And finally, Andromeda Standing Stones of Skyrim gives us some serious options for standing stones, not just the Atronach. Links to all those mods as well as timestamps can be found just below in the description. But with that said, let's get right into this build with the Akaviri Assassin's race, standing stone, and stats. The Akaviri Assassin is a Breton of High Rock, and with the Imperious Races of Skyrim mod, this means he will have the following stats and abilities. He'll begin the game with 95 health, 105 magicka, 100 stamina, 0.75% health regen per second, 3.125% when it comes to magicka, and 4.75% when it comes to stamina. He'll also have 300 carry weight. Then he'll have 3 immediately available abilities and 1 unlockable ability. Grail of Betny hides a lost artifact somewhere in the land that grants a bonus to magic and stamina regen. Spell Mantle gives you a resistance to magic, and the opportunity to absorb most incoming spells at low magicka. Stones of Galen means that each standing stone you take grants its own bonus effect. And finally, after discovering 10 standing stones, you can use the shared ancestry power once per day. This temporarily gives you the racial power of a target man or mer. Use it wisely. As for standing stones, we'll be going with the Shadow Stone. This gives us the following effects. Blur will increase our movement speed by 20% in combat, and just so you know, our movement speed is already increased by other things. Hide in Shadows will make our sneaking and sneak attacks 20% more effective when near a wall or obstacle. And finally, the unlockable perk is Shadow Step, and this allows you to expend 50 points of stamina to dash to a nearby target within 75 feet. And now for the backstory. The Akaviri Assassin was born in High Rock's youngest and coldest kingdom, in the city of Johanna. The snow fell thick and heavy over this bustling port city, and the Aurora Borealis was a sight to behold in the evenings. The city was as beautiful as its name. The Akaviri Assassin lived his early years in luxury. His father was influential in the king's court, though he spent most of his time away in Cyrodiil and Valenwood, as he was a well-established member of the Blades. Understandably, the Akaviri Assassin was fascinated by his father's line of work, and he was the perfect role model. Knights errant and the ambition to prove your gallantry was a part of the culture in High Rock, and the assassin was no exception to these hopes and dreams. But rather than dreaming of wearing a suit of shining armor, the assassin imagined himself fitting into his father's Blades armor. He had a spare set which stood on a mannequin, watching over him and his mother in his father's stead. His father told him many stories of the Blades and why they looked so alien to the Knights of High Rock and Cyrodiil. The Blades, or the Dragon Guard as he liked to call them, originated in the distant land of Akavir. They came to Tamriel in search of the fabled Dragonborn, and they found him in the form of Riemann Cyrodiil. Since then, the group served as bodyguards to the Emperor, and they maintained many of their Akaviri traditions, including their exotic style. His father had a training room set up in the cellar of their home. The walls were lined with weapons and practice armor. Akaviri artifacts were kept in locked cases, and endless manuscripts and weathered tomes lined the bookshelves. The assassin wasn't supposed to go down there. He was too young to be around those weapons, but with his father absent so often and his mother always out at the markets, he liked to wander down there just to look around. It made him feel closer to his father, who would likely be carrying out some important business for the Emperor. He was down in the cellar, running his finger along an old sword when the news came. Folded metal with a slight curve to it. It looked fragile due to the narrowness of the blade, but these Akaviri katanas would cut through flesh and bone without any semblance of resistance. His mother descended the stairs and the assassin panicked, certain he was going to be scolded for touching the weapon, but his fear was soon replaced by a much more powerful feeling of trepidation. She held a note with an imperial seal on it. It had been delivered by a courier who rode through the night. His father had been stationed in Valenwood when the Thalmor ambassador visited the imperial city. When Emperor Titus Mede II rejected the ultimatum, calling for the disbandment of the Blades, the ambassador upended a cart full of severed heads. Every Blades member from Somerset and Valenwood decapitated and thrown at the Emperor's doorstep. The Akaviri assassin's father was among the victims. Years went by before the Akaviri assassin had the heart to set foot in his father's cellar again. When the day did come, the door responded with a shrill shriek as the assassin wrenched it open, averse to the movement after so long left undisturbed. The Blades were long gone now, and the Great War had started and ended. But beneath their home in High Rock, the Akaviri assassin had a goldmine of now forbidden information and equipment. He'd told himself that should a high elf ever turn up on their doorstep to search for contraband, he would remove their heads just as they'd done to his father. But if he wanted to do that, he needed to learn to fight, and thus far he'd been trained in courtly politics and offered a place of influence not too far removed from the King of Johanna. But as far as combat goes, he couldn't kill a mud crab. Down in his father's cellar, bookshelves were overflowing with old manuscripts, many displaying the various combat stances characteristic of the Akaviri style. They fascinated him, and he trained tirelessly with the sparring gear and the wooden dummies scattered around the open room. When he wasn't practicing Akaviri martial arts, he was practicing footwork with the katana, and when his muscles were aching, he would be learning about Akaviri history, culture, and their methods for defeating dragons and protecting the Dragonborn. Within 5 years, he'd proved himself in duels against influential lords and knights from across the province. He soon found himself hitting it off with the King of Farron, another monarch in the region of Hrothgar. He was a serious man with many enemies, some of which were even orc raiders, and the Akaviri assassin's unique, evasive, light-footed approach to combat intrigued him greatly. He soon employed our build character to be his personal assassin, doing justice to the name Akaviri Assassin. The contracts were silent and never to take out other Breton monarchs. Oftentimes, it was actually to take out orcs, as the Kingdom of Farron was constantly at odds with raiders in the area, and when a Breton who fought like the Dead Blades came into their territory to claim a scalp, the brutes soon reconsidered their attempts to attack Farron land. The pay was good, and the Akaviri Assassin had no reason to ever leave High Rock. That was until he began to hear rumors of the return of the dragons. The Blades of old, the Dragon Guard, became legendary for their ability to slay dragons, and his father had told him of a Blades temple in Skyrim. Maybe if the rumors were true, sympathizers to his father's cause would gather, and if not, he could be a paid killer in the war-ravaged province, perhaps even taking on contracts to deal with these dragons. The Akaviri assassin quickly made his way to the docks of Johanna, only a short voyage from Solitude, and after arriving in the province, we will join him in the Winking Skeever, where he'll be listening out for rumors of the dragon's return. So that means we'll be picking the patron at an inn alternate start with the alternate start mod, and the assassin will have a few priorities as he adventures Skyrim. Killing professionally for a lot of gold is a talent of his, and his time spent in the courts of High Rock makes diplomacy and persuasion in the comparably barbaric cities of Skyrim easy. He will take on contracts if the pay is right, and while he does not relish in killing people, he is a master at it, and he makes assassination an art form. After all, if he didn't do it, someone else would, and they wouldn't kill as quickly and as cleanly as he does, so in a way it's actually humane for him to murder for money. And yes, that is his profession, but he also reveres the Akaviri values, and would love the opportunity to hunt dragons and to gain entry into the ancient Skyhaven Temple. When it comes to factions and questlines, the main story fits his fascination with the Blades and the Akaviri way of life. Slaying dragons will be a priority for the Akaviri assassin, and learning that he is in fact the Dragonborn will motivate him to reform the Blades. Once upon a time, they sought out the Dragonborn, Riemann Cyrodiil, and now he lives to further that legacy. Aside from the main story and the subsequent journey to Solstheim in the Dragonborn DLC, the main faction for the Akaviri assassin will be the Dark Brotherhood. Ahead of everything else, he is a hitman, and while he may not subscribe to the edgy practices and rituals of the faction, it's pretty simple. They carry out planned assassinations with good rewards, and he's the best assassin the Falkreath Sanctuary has ever seen and will ever see. Putting his conscience aside and slipping into his professional mindset will allow him to make a lot of money working with them. The Thieves Guild is another viable faction choice, as he does have the skill set to make a lot of gold with his stealth abilities and his speechcraft. Growing up around politics has given him the talent to read the motivations of the people he negotiates with, and his silver tongue can be so profitable that it could more suitably be referred to as a gold tongue. Now, in the Dawnguard DLC, you can side with the vampires if you want to. However, this build is not some evil world domination type. It would purely be a way to gain valuable abilities. The build does look pretty epic with glowing eyes after all. We did test it out. Though on the other hand, you can avoid the Volkihar clan like we did and instead test your skills by assassinating vampires for the Dawnguard. The College of Winterhold is a nice and easy way to access useful illusion and alteration spells, as well as leveling with the help of the teachers within. Other than that, look out for any quests that involve killing for money. A lot of normal quests will give you the opportunity to refine your arts of stealth and assassination and to practice with magic and blade. Finally, make sure to betray Azura in her Daedric quest to get your hands on the Black Star. Now that we have the Akaviri Assassin's backstory, roleplaying, and factions, let's have a look at his skills, spells, shouts, perks, and his overall playstyle. The main skills for this build will be one-handed, illusion, alteration, sneak, and speech. Now, before we get into the essential perks from each of these skill trees, there are a number of spells and shouts you need to acquire, many of which come from the Apocalypse Magic of Skyrim mod. Okado's Recital is the first of these spells, and this one will activate automatically whenever we enter combat, and don't worry, we've picked perks to make sure this is silent. The spells to use with Okado's Recital include Ebony Flesh, Soul Cloak, and Invisibility. Ebony Flesh will provide you with protection, and thanks to a perk we will talk about soon, it will also grant you increased attack damage, stamina regen, and even water walking. Soul Cloak will cause all nearby hostile targets to feel soul gems on death, and Invisibility will of course turn you invisible. Due to his playstyle, you will likely assassinate a few enemies before getting spotted, and having Invisibility activate automatically will give you the chance to get one more assassination in there before having to fight in the open. Aside from the 3 spells within Okado's Recital, there's only one other you'll want to have at the ready, and that's Ghost Walk. This is really cool. With it, you'll turn invisible, but unlike Invisibility, breaking this spell will teleport you back to the location you casted it from. It's a great way to disengage should you blow your cover, and a perfect way to assassinate people and then disappear unseen. If you want to change up your spell casting, you can always implement a trusty paralyzed spell, but it's not necessary to the assassin's playstyle. Due to our perk choices, shouts we cast will be as silent as our spells. Marked for Death is our main shout, used to drop a target's armor rating and health significantly. Using all 3 words will remove 75 armor and 3 HP every second for 60 seconds. Other shouts to sprinkle in when the situation calls for it include Become Ethereal for escaping, and Whirlwind Sprint to work alongside your quick movement speed in combat. But with silent shouts, you can really add any others you'd like. Maybe you could even sneak up on an enemy and then shout them off a cliff with unrelenting force. Your other targets will just assume a heavy breeze rolled by the camp. But with all of that said, let's finally talk about perks. First up, we have One-Handed, and this is an assassin's best friend. A two-handed greatsword isn't going to do the trick when you infiltrate a busy feast hall to execute a prolific target. There's no slipping that thing past the guards by smuggling it in your breeches, that's for sure. An Akaviri sword is this guy's specialty, and combined with ancient Akaviri martial arts, the common scum of Skyrim won't know what hit them. From the one-handed skill tree, take One-Handed Mastery 2 out of 2, Furious Strength, Overrun, Disciplined Fighter, Thundering Blow, Aftershock, Clash of Champions 3 out of 3, Crosscut 2 out of 2, Falling Sword, Windswept, Into the Dust, Judgment, and Wandering Warrior. With Thundering Blow, performing a total of 8 or more regular attacks will make your next power attack twice as strong, costing no stamina, and with Aftershock, your Thundering Blow will also increase your attack speed by 75% for 3 seconds afterwards. The branch beginning with Clash of Champions will improve your effectiveness with swords, and Wandering Warrior will actually translate your victories into permanent one-handed bonuses. Every time you defeat at least 4 humanoid and/or animals in a single battle, you will receive a boost of plus 1% to one-handed damage, stacking up to a total max of plus 20%. Next comes Illusion, and while it only requires a little investment, it is the difference between life and death in many situations. The Akaviri Akaviri Assassin is a shadow, and he disappears just when his foes think they've gotten the better of him. He has Illusion to thank for that. From this skill tree, grab Illusion Mastery 2 out of 2, and then Quiet Before the Storm 2 out of 2. With the latter, all spells you cast from any school of magic, as well as all shouts, are silent to others. Alteration protects the assassin like a suit of armor, even though he dresses in light, practical, and most importantly, silent robes. From the Alteration skill tree, take Alteration Mastery 2 out of 2, Philosopher's Stone, Command Lock, Alter Self-Resistances, picking Fire and Frost, Alter Self-Attributes, picking Health, Nullifier, Spellblade, Energy Royal, Wild Shrines, Intuitive Magic 1 out of 2, Warlock's Dormant Arcana, picking Attack Damage, Stamina Regen, and Water Walking, Mage Armor 3 out of 3, and Distorted Shape. Nullifier will weaken all enemies within your vicinity. If they're within 25 feet, they will not be able to regenerate Magicka or Stamina. Spellblade allows your spellcasting to improve your melee damage. When casting a spell, whether that be manually in battle or when Okado's Recital activates automatically, you'll deal 20% more damage for 4 seconds. Additionally, Energy Royal is activated the same way and reduces enemies within 10 feet armor by 150 points for 4 seconds. 1 rank of Intuitive Magic will make all novice spells free to cast. Warlock's Dormant Arcana allows you to choose a spell type and 3 magic effects. These effects activate when you are affected by the chosen spell type. So in the case of the Akaviri Assassin, when we use flesh spells like Ebony Flesh, we're going to improve our attack damage, stamina regen, and get ourselves water walking. Lastly, Distorted Shape will further enhance our Ebony Flesh effects. When Ebony Flesh triggers, you become intangible and unable to be struck by spells or attacks for 10 seconds or until you perform an action. Next up, we have the all-important skill, the Akaviri Assassin's trump card, Sneak. His targets will be none the wiser until their heads are rolling on the ground, and his enemies, well, how can they kill what they can't see? From the Sneak skill tree, go for Sneak Mastery 2 out of 2, Silent Roll, Dynamic Entry, Infiltrator, right behind you, behind enemy lines, Shadow Warrior, Sneak Attack, Problem Solver, Cloak and Dagger, and Laughing Ghost. Right behind you will further boost our Assassination proficiency. When hidden in a target's blind spot, sneaking is 15% more effective within 30 feet and 30% more effective within 15 feet. Our invisibility as well as Shadow Warrior combined with Cloak and Dagger makes for a deadly mix. Shadow Warrior allows us to enter sneak mode in combat, initiating invisibility for 2 seconds with an 8-second cooldown, and thanks to Cloak and Dagger, power attacks from invisibility are guaranteed to result in a critical hit, dealing 50% bonus damage. Finally, Laughing Ghost gives us a unique power to teleport behind an enemy when sneaking for a sneak power attack that deals double damage. Finally, we have the Akaviri Assassin's weapon outside of combat. The right word said into the right person's ear is more powerful than any blade. This build can manipulate his associates, and should he need to get aggressive, he can raise his voice and unleash the thumb instead. Both strategies are covered by the speech skill. From this skill tree, take Speech Mastery 2 out of 2, Kinship, Salesman, Investor, Fence, Trade Prince, End the Universe Listens, Windborn, Hurricane Force, and Force Redoubled 2 out of 2. The bartering perks are all pretty straightforward, but the addition of perks like End the Universe Listens will really add a new dimension to shouting. With this, shouting restores health, magicka, and stamina, and it even allows you to gain speech experience through shouting. Windborn grants us 30% extra attack damage and 15% more movement speed after a shout for 15 seconds. This build is going to be very fast, especially when we get into gear. And with all of that in mind, the perks, the shouts, and the spells, we've got the following playstyle. Okado's Recital activates when entering combat or when enemies begin to discover you. If you're only half discovered, don't worry though, as we have perks to make our spells quiet and our shouts too, so enemies won't hear Okado's Recital activate. When activated, you'll be protected by Ebony Flesh, you'll have a Soul Cloak which will allow you to trap enemy souls, and you'll become invisible, allowing you to stay hidden or get off another sneak kill before it all goes down, and you use your crazy movement speed to tear the battle apart. To normally get many kills, this build will pick a strategic spot to cast Ghost Walk from, which will be silent, then you go all out invisible, assassinate your enemy, and then you'll be teleported back to your hidden spot out of sight. The aim is to use Ghost Walk as much as possible, even if you're mid-combat, but if you do mess up when trying to stay hidden, invisibility will come on from Okado's Recital, and then after you break that, you can just use Ghost Walk more for free due to the Intuitive Magic perk and start assassinating again, or just go all out in the open running running around super acrobatically, slashing everyone apart. That works pretty well once you're discovered, I must say. Now, we'll also be moving even faster due to a ring we're using. However, when discovered in battle, remember we go even faster again due to the Shadowstone ability called Blur, and like I said just recently, after we shout, we'll also be moving faster. Soul-trapped enemies should be used to recharge your sword. Remember, you'll also have powers to use, such as Shared Ancestry, which lets you temporarily gain the racial power of a target man or mer. Remember to use the Marked for Death shout when you can to weaken your enemies, and keep in mind we'll have resistance to magicka from our ring and our racial passives and other protection from perks. Now, the gear is where things get even more interesting for the Akaviri Assassin. He doesn't get his reputation only from his playstyle and approach to combat. No, he stands out in Skyrim for his style too. The Akaviri Assassin will wear the Deceiver's Finery, which you can acquire from Solitude's Radiant Raiment. This outfit boosts speech by 18 points and improves buying and selling prices by 18%. The Veil of the Seer, which can be found at Cragwallow Slope on an end table, fits nicely with the aesthetic, and it gives you the unique ability to detect living creatures through walls and reduces alteration, destruction, and restoration casting costs by 5%. A simple pair of fine black boots will finish off the outfit. For jewelry, get the Ring of the Viper Eye from Harmog Style on a table next to the Alchemy Lab. This ring increases movement speed by 50 and increases magic resistance by 25%. Then get the Eye of Sithis from the Dawnstar Sanctuary, before the Torture Room or before finding Cicero. This necklace works in a similar way to the Veil of the Seer and allows you to cast a powerful detect life spell called Eye of Sithis. Now we're looking dapper and we're powerful, we'll only need our blade, and this one is called the Akaviri Sunderblade. You can find this at Ancestor Glade beside a rock near one of the higher trees. This badass blade ignores 50% of the target's armor and has a chance to disarm. The only other thing you'll need before you're all set is a place to put all those trapped souls, so get that black star from Azura's quest as soon as possible. And there you have it, guys, everything you need for our latest modded build, the Akaviri Assassin. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and be sure to hit subscribe and ring the end of that bell if you want to keep up with all of our future builds. As always, timestamps, the mods list, and links to our social media accounts can all be found just below in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Michael, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.